There was a lot of things that started to make sense and fall into place. So unless you've done it and you understand it properly, there will always be people that will think, oh, it's just a time, It's just a date. But I can absolutely hand on heart tell you that your human design, if you understand it, is going to help you have better relationships. It's going to help you have a better life and maybe even a different journey. Pretty much a blueprint. I call it a blueprint of everything that I've learned over the past 20 years, dealing with people, working in organisations, some dysfunctional, some toxic, some great. And so I've kind of figured out a bit of a blueprint in terms of how we need to treat people and what are some tools to be able to get the best out of people and what are the ways that you can interact with people effectively and what do people need to be able to, really understand where they fit in the bigger picture. I figured out that I would work in organisations and I would go in and try and fix and solve the people problems. And most of the organisations I worked for, anything from private to public to ASX listed to S&P listed, I would go in and do large transformations, some $1 million change projects that I would work on. And I was always there to fix people problems, taken turnover from 43% to 8%. So I kind of knew how to fix the issues and I could look at it, and I was always seeing things from a bird's eye view, and I was always looking down on the organisation and figuring out, well, what do we need to change here and here and here to make this work better?
Welcome to the Victory Lion Podcast. Lion!
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
And now your host,
Opi Jayasinghe.
Miss Janice Elsley.
Hello.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you so much. Thanks for making the time.
That's all right. Thanks for coming all the way from Melbourne.
That's all right. Tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of your earlier life, and then we'll work to the present day if that's okay with you.
Yeah, perfect. So earlier, I suppose I started off as, I grew up in Brisbane, which was really nice. I've been here pretty much all of my life. I started off basically channeling all of my energy into figure skating.
Ah.
So I started that when I was about 7 and finished when I was about 19.
That's a long time, right?
It is. So I lived and dreamed and breathed everything about the skating rink. I suppose what that taught me was, obviously resilience and perseverance and, discipline and everything else. Having to get up early, training every afternoon after school.
Serious?
Yeah. So it was definitely a huge part of my life, but I suppose it's and how it's made me the person that I am today.
Yeah, amazing. It's funny because obviously we met through our friend Johnny, and I've heard a lot about you, about your entrepreneurial, your can-do attitude. You're always just trying to, be ahead of the curve, which is amazing, all right? But he's never mentioned the figure skating.
He hasn't. Well, I suppose that's why I always try and, get better and do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I think it's because, when I figure skated, I would often fall down on my bottom or my face or wherever it may be, and I was always assessed with a number. Someone would give me a score and hold a score up of what you got, depending on how good your jump was or your spin. And so I think always being assessed and judged, you were just able to, just get up again and keep going and trying again and again and again and again, and it didn't matter.
That's amazing because, you're absolutely right. Obviously, we're talking about figure skating here, but no matter what you do in life, the success principles are very universal. So you've obviously been able to take that into other parts of your life just to crush it, right?
Yeah.
And I know, obviously, you've written an amazing book here. I will get to that in a second. But just figure skating was obviously a big part of your life.
Yeah.
And you said you finished at about 19-ish?
Yeah, absolutely. So
this was
that was one of my trophies, yes. Yeah. So this was one of my trophies. So I won Queensland Champion in 1997, and I went to Nationals. So I've got many medals and trophies, and I've still got them, many years on. They're getting a little bit rusty, but,
Oh, that's amazing though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still do it?
I don't compete competitively anymore.
But just for fun?
I'm nearly 44, so I can still skate, and I still whip my kids all the time, which is great. I'll be skating around, and I can still do spins and jumps and stuff like that.
Can
which
you?
is not as good as what I used to be able to. But I'm a little bit more fragile when I fall now, obviously, given my age. But you don't forget it. I mean, something that I learnt every single day. I would train every afternoon after school, Monday to Friday. I was there from 3:15, 3:20 p.m. My parents would pick me up about 6:30.
Okay.
So I spent at least 3 hours a day, every day, Monday to Friday. And then Saturday, Sunday, I'd be coaching and helping learn to skate and teaching others how to skate on a Saturday. And then a Sunday, I would usually compete. So, beautiful costumes and, sequins and all of that type of stuff. And, so I kind of did it, I wouldn't say 24/7, but
pretty much,
all the time outside of school.
So that discipline was like inbuilt within you as a child.
Yeah.
Was that something that your parents pushed you towards, or is it just that you really enjoyed it?
Yeah, no, not at all. So actually the next door neighbour and my uncle had sort of said, have you ever been skating? Do you know how to skate? And I didn't. And I ended up going with them and sort of did okay. And then, just started going through Learn to Skate, the program, and then started going into it competitively. And I just had the love for it. And it was just a way for me to channel, my passion and that strong discipline, into a task or into an activity, which has now kind of set me up for how I operate as an adult, as a parent, and everything else. So
amazing. Yeah. I'll just one last question on the skating side. Is that big in Australia compared to other parts of the world?
Ice skating is.
Ice skating is. Okay.
Roller skating isn't as big, but we do the exact same thing. So we do mostly the same jumps, the same spins. We have the competitions the same, the assessment, the sequence, the costumes, all of that type of stuff. Okay. There's still many people that skate now. There's a lot of skating rinks around here, same with Melbourne and other places. It's probably not, generally at the Worlds and stuff, you see ice, but we do also have Worlds for roller skating as well.
Okay. So, have you broken anything?
No, I haven't. No, touch wood. No.
Okay.
No.
Amazing.
No. Some sore bottoms and some sore faces and sore arms if you're doing a jump and you've kind of gone down. Yeah, but no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. Like it's not every day that you meet someone who's been that competitive, that passionate about one thing. After 19, what happened after that? Like, what was your focus? How did you, and why did the skating sort of
why? I think I got a bit older and it sort of got to a point where I'd done it for a long time and I'd finished school and I needed to, I suppose, go into the real world and figure out what I was going to do with my life and what job I was going to work. And so finished school and then kind of moved into the public sector for a little while and then started to go into private enterprise.
Okay, amazing. And the whole entrepreneurial spirit, like when did that like truly kick in for you?
Maybe probably the last 5 or 6 years, I suppose. Okay. I figured out that I would work in organisations and I would go in and try and fix and solve the people problems. And most of the organisations I worked for, anything from private to public to ASX listed to S&P listed, I would go in and do large transformations, some $1 million change projects that I would work on. And I was always there to fix people problems, taken turnover from 43% to 8%. So I kind of knew how to fix the issues and I could look at it and I was always seeing things from a bird's eye view and I was always looking down on the organisation and figuring out, well, what do we need to change here and here and here to make this work better? And so...
When you say people problems, do you mean like the churn or the amount of, is it the toxic culture or, sorry?
All of it.
Okay.
So the toxic culture, the burnout, the
attrition rate or whatever,
everything. So, because when we have people, right, we have problems. It doesn't matter what organisation you're in. It's, people fundamentally need... they need to be cared for, they need to be valued and a lot of organisations, they don't do that And so if people don't feel cared for and valued, then that's when you start to get all the other problems that spiral from that.
Okay. Any interesting stories you want to share that? I don't know if you can, because obviously, yeah, have like really challenging moments that.
Yeah, I mean, there was one particular person that I helped, and he would have been in his 40s at the time, or maybe actually probably close to late 40s, and without revealing too many details of the organisation or anything like that, but I remember he used to get cranky at a lot of things, and there was an incident that had happened in the lunchroom, and it was over milk of all things. And I remember that, there was an altercation that broke out between him and another person. And it was all over milk. And I think what was really important with that is once I started to understand, what was really going on with him, and I cared about him and I valued him, and I really started working with him one-on-one within this organisation, I figured out there was a whole lot of things going on in his personal life, and it was very much around the fact that I showed him that I really cared for him. And then we started to look at some programs, some anger management programs, and some other kind of counselling services that really helped to support him. And after about 3 months when we started to work with him, he was amazing, Okay. So we really turned him around, that full circle, and started to give him tools around how do you reframe, how do we label things, and how do we take something and look at it and go, okay, well, this is what's happened. How do I respond versus react? And I think that was, a really nice turning point for me, where I could see that, it really is about helping to understand and unlocking that human potential within people. And with him, I was able to do that. And so when you see that and you walk away, and then, you're still friends with that person, 15 years ago.
Amazing.
You know that you've really helped to touch and to help someone's life, and, by unlocking that potential inside of them. And I think that's the problem. A lot of organisations, they just don't do that.
Yeah. Are you finding it easier or harder? I mean, it's hard to say, right? But as a woman coming in and just sort of giving these feedbacks to, maybe some of the guys who are a bit aggro, like, are they receptive? How are you?
I think they are. Most of them are. But I think it's because they can see I genuinely care for them. So if you can show someone that you care for them, and you actually care about them, their lives, their family, their challenges at work and outside of work, then you build trust. And when you build trust, people trust you, and, they want you to help them, or they want you to help get them from, here to here. And if you can't build that trust, then, you're not going to get where you need to get.
Amazing. Because that way, you're not fighting against them. You're in their team. Like, you're trying to make...
You're in their corner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Any other stories like that?
No, not that I can think of on the top of my...
I mean, that was an interesting one, to be honest, especially over milk of all things.
It was quite interesting, and older than, 49 year old, kind of having a little bit of altercation over milk in the lunchroom. So, it was very interesting. But it just goes to show that, it can be little things like that can trigger people. And so if we can't get a hold of it or get control of a certain thing, then, then it sort of spirals out. So something that is like this can then become,
pretty
this big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're obviously well-read, and, you've got a real zest for life now. Like, what's your core philosophy? Like, if there was a young teenager, girl or guy, sitting next to you, like, what would you try and instill in them? Like, you go, hey, I wish I learned this 20 years ago. Yeah,
I think self-care is really important, and wellness. And I think that's probably your first thing out of everything. Everything else falls into place. But if you don't look after yourself, your health, and really set those parameters around you as well, in terms of, I always talk to my kids about, I've got 2 kids, 16, nearly 17, and 14. Yes, I've got a boy. Boy grade 11 and a girl grade 9. But I think when I look at that, I always tell them, you're going to meet people in life that light up your candle, And, I've heard this analogy quite a bit, that light up your candle. And, you really want to be around them. And there's going to be some nasty people, because there are nasty people in the world, unfortunately. And they're going to blow your candle out. So I always tell them, when they're trying to pick their tribe and their people around them, to try and identify who are those friends that light them up, and then light that camera, light that light up in that candle and keep it alight, versus who are the ones that blow it out. And so I try and always teach them that now, and even, the interns and stuff like that from university, I mentor quite a few interns, and I always try and tell them that as well. You look after yourself, you look after the people around you, and you weed out the ones that don't care about you and don't want to lift you up and make you be the best person that you can be.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you obviously believe in the as you mentioned, the vibing, the wavelengths and the energies that people give off, and you can tell the goodies from the not so goodies, right?
Absolutely.
Do you have a filtering process, or is it just sort of you after so many interactions with people over the years? I think I've got I went to obviously uni and stuff after school, and I've got qualifications in postgrad qualifications in neuroscience, and I've done undergrad psychology and HR and law and business as well. And I think when you've worked in organisations for a long time and you've worked with many different people across every single industry, you kind of figure out pretty quickly, and it is more of a gut feel, but you kind of figure out pretty quickly, who you kind of get along, who you're going to get along with, who you're not, and who's going to be difficult and who's not. And it's just in terms of the way that they respond, even the way that you see someone and, they talk to you. For example, I had to go to the IGA the other day, and, I go there most days, and, there was literally 2 girls there behind the counter, and I walked up to them, and one of them was like, oh, hi, blah, 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 straight away, it makes you warming, you feel comfortable. It makes a difference.
It does. And then the next girl didn't say a word. It was just almost like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, hi, how are you? She's like, good. And so it's sort of, I think that way that you, and I am full of energy, I do project a lot of energy, and I've always been that. I'm quite a happy person. So there are people that aren't like me, and you need to be able to understand that not everyone's the same, but you need to sort of find that common ground in terms of how you get along and how you interact, and then, effectively how you actually pick that tribe to then surround yourself with the right people to make sure you can be the best that you can be.
Yeah, 100%. Vibing with your tribe I'm all up for that, because, life's short as it is. You'd rather do your best to surround yourself with good people that are, that you can vibe with. It makes a huge difference to your mental state, your well-being, the way you come back and interact with your own family, your kids. So, completely agree. Good on you. What made you write the book?
Oh, the book. Well, so Leadership Legacy. So this is my book. So I will give you a copy when it's when I get it back. So it's just sitting with the printers at the moment. Okay. So it's pretty much a blueprint. I call it a blueprint of everything that I've learned over the past 20 years dealing with people, working in organisations, some dysfunctional, some toxic, some great. And so I've kind of figured out a bit of a blueprint in terms of how we need to treat people and what are some tools to be able to get the best out of people, and what are the ways that you can interact with people effectively, and what do people need to be able to, really understand where they fit in the bigger picture.
Okay.
There's a lot of tools in here for kind of self-awareness, so really personal tools. There's human skills assessments in here as well to figure out where you are. So, Yep.
Do you have a sort of an idea of who would be the ideal reader?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Leadership Legacy, 7 strategies every CEO, business owner or manager needs to know to attract and retain top talent. So pretty much any CEO, any business owner, any leader, any manager, any aspiring person that wants to be a manager.
Okay.
Yep. So males and females. No industry specific. I have worked across most industries, so I've sort of tried to blend all of it into one kind of blueprint. So
Okay, wonderful.
that's kind of how it's come about. So I finished it a couple of months ago. It's literally sitting at the printers at the moment, just in pre-launch phase at the moment. And yeah, it'll be available within the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks.
Amazing. How was the whole writing process? Because that couldn't have been easy, right? Getting all the thoughts and ideas into
Yeah.
formats that are, I suppose, digestible, right?
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
Yeah, it was tough in terms of, I never thought I'd write a book in my life. So it was very tough around, figuring out how do I take everything that I've learnt over 20 years and how do I put it into into a blueprint. And it was many, many hours in terms of, a few late nights and lots of weekend time. And yeah, it was lots of kind of doing notes on your phone when things popped up and you were out and reminding you, recording into your phone.
It's a good technique.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, that's kind of how I sort of got to where I am now. And yeah, I'm really excited to be able to hopefully release this to the world in the next few
Yeah, I
weeks.
can't wait.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Do you have I know it's like asking, what's your favorite baby?
Yeah.
But do you have a favorite chapter or a concept that you feel like sharing?
Yeah, I like them all.
This is what I mean. It's hard, right?
I like them all, but actually I was thinking about that the other day. I do like closer to the end chapter, which is, I think it was chapter 14. I just can't remember off the top of my head because I've rewritten. But it was really about, your legacy. How do you actually create your legacy?
Hence the book type.
Yeah, so leadership legacy. And so I think that was my really exciting chapter, and I think that's because it kind of pulls it all together and rounds it all back as to, who do you want to be? Who do you want to show up to be? Your legacy really is about being better every single day and working on yourself. And so if you can do that, then, the sky's the limit and everything else sort of follows.
Yeah, so if you have that on the forefront of your mind, you wouldn't be playing all these office politics and backstabbings and stuff because, as you said, I mean, I haven't read your book yet, but that way it's going to leave a horrible impression, right? That's not the legacy that anyone wants to leave.
No, not at all. And we do have, unfortunately, organisations at the moment where there are a lot of people like that within the system. And, I call it a system because it's broken. We were here and we were put on this earth, humans, to be able to connect with each other and collaborate, not compete. And unfortunately, organisations and, universities and all of that type of stuff were about competing with each other. And for me, that's part of it. And yes, I know because I've competed my whole life in terms of figure skating against other girls and women and stuff like that, and having to compete for first place versus third place and all of that. But at the end of the day, we really are here to collaborate with each other. And if we can collaborate with each other, instead of compete, we're going to get a whole lot further.
Yeah. I really like that legacy approach, to be honest. I've never thought of it like that, and it's amazing. So, I mean, would you say as a manager, CEO, if they're sort of going into an organization, before even they start, should they have that in the back of their mind kind of thing? It's like, think of the end in mind when you do finish up. Do you bring that forward and go, I'm about to embark on this journey? Yeah. How should I, is that something you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what happens in organisations is we have a lot of people in roles and, they're mostly in technical roles, and they are, promoted into manager roles, but they have no soft skills and they have no skills to be able to lead people. And it actually starts with themselves. So they don't know how to lead themselves, so how can they lead others? Yeah. And so, that's probably a good segue. I've actually created 3 leadership programs as well. So I've been a little bit busy. So wrote a book. So I've got 3 leadership programs. So one's called Leading Edge Women, which is just for women. It's a beautiful 12-week program. Okay. There's some elements around human design and coaching, and there's also a wellness element as well. And we can go into that a little bit later. I've got another program which is called First 100 Days of Leadership, which is for men and women. and kind of really sets the scenes for what to expect in that first sort of 90 days. And gives them some really good tools and some, knowledge around how to be the best they can be, to then obviously lead those around them. And then the third one is called the Leadership Edge Mastering Success. So that's men and women as well, and that's another 12-week program. Okay. So I've sort of tried to cater my experience and what I've learned over the last 20 years and bundle it up into a book, and then bundle it up into 3 different programs that kind of caters for a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of the structure or the not the structure, the entrance to those courses, is it invite only? How do people get?
Oh.
Yeah.
No. So obviously there's they can jump on my website. So www.janiceelsley.com. So they can jump on that, or they can jump on my business website, which is Harissa Business Partners. So www.harissabp.com.au. Okay. And then there's a little section, leadership and courses. They just click on that, click the button and go enroll or learn more, and then that'll come through to me and I can give them all the details.
Amazing. And look, sorry to go into the details, but I'll ask you, like, does it start at a specific date and then people sort of build up to, say, June the 1st or whatever? Yeah. And then you kick off for 12 weeks? 12
weeks, yeah. They'll have lifetime access. There's kind of points throughout that I'll open up the program. Okay. So I'll just wait until I've got a big enough wait list, and then I'll open it up.
Perfect way, right? Because because that way they're getting a direct interaction with you.
With me,
as opposed to just watching videos or whatever.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I try and do master classes during the month as well. So, to kind of just reinforce and help sustain some of that learning that they've learned. And then they get obviously that one-to-one with me as well.
Okay. Is there any other products that, like, people who don't want to commit to the 12 weeks?
Yeah.
Or like in between kind of thing from the book?
Yeah. So the first 100 days of leadership, that's a little bit shorter.
Okay.
That's sort of a 4-week course.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. And that was for men and women? Yeah?
Men and women.
Okay.
Yep.
Who would be the ideal person?
Yeah. Managers, anyone wanting to move into a manager role.
Okay.
Even new managers, new leaders at the moment, that would be fantastic.
So like even team leaders who are sort of managing operational teams?
Absolutely,
Like factories as well?
Yeah. I mean, the soft skills are the same. It doesn't matter whether you're in manufacturing, aviation, healthcare, finance, financial services. Mm-hmm. The people are still the same. They might be different in terms of a different occupation and they're doing a different role. But at the end of the day, what I noticed out of the 20 years that I've worked in corporates and private public is that the people issues remain the same regardless of industry. People are burnt out, people are unengaged, and it really comes down to how they're treated, how their managers are, where they fit. Do they feel like they're valued? Are they being included? Do they feel like they've got a voice? Are they being paid effectively? So there's a lot of parameters around it, but the main one really is care. Do you feel cared for, and do you feel like you're valued, and that the contribution you're giving towards the company is being valued, and they care for you.
Yeah, okay. I love that. And I'm really looking forward to actually reading the book after you've actually elaborated that. Obviously, it's around people skills. Besides your book, what are some of your other favorite books?
Some of my other favorite books. Oh, I like it the most. I'm reading a lot of books at the moment on women's hormones, actually. Perimenopause and all of that.
I've been hearing a lot about that. I mean, I guess I'm getting old as well.
So I've been reading a little bit on that. I have my face at the moment in another book, which is my human design book. So I'm certified now in human design. So human design pretty much is a methodology that you look at. There's a few systems that kind of bring it into one. There's astrology. There's I Ching. There's the Kabbalah tree. There's quantum physics, so there's a whole lot of, I suppose, systems that come into one system. And what you can figure out from this is what is your design and why you're here and what's your purpose on earth. And by doing that coaching and this debrief with me, I can kind of help you figure out, well, what strategy type are you? What's your authority? And what are you kind of here for on earth? And so, yeah, it's pretty exciting. So that's it's where I got my head at the moment in a human design textbook. There's many channels and gates, and like there's a lot to learn about it. So, yeah.
And I think you just need your date of birth, time you were born, and place of birth as well kick things off. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's to do the pre-test or something, right? To see where you are?
It's basically to pull your chart, and then there's software that we use to pull your chart. So we pull your chart, and then from that we then work with you over the coming weeks to figure out and to really unpack that, and then to get the coaching around, well, what does that look like to you, and is that you? For example, before I did mine, which was a number of years ago, I came out as a projector, and a projector is someone that's kind of one in, some people say it's 21% of the world, other people say it's 24%, but there's only, say, 21 to 24% of me in the world, which is a projector. And a projector is about being that shining light or that guide and that leader and teaching people and guiding people. And so when I then look at the role I'm doing or the role I've done and continue to do is I help people, I guide people, I help figure out, how do they kind of get back on track and how do we get them to understand what their purpose is in life. And because if you can do that, then people are going to get better relationships, they're going to have a better life, everything else gets better. So it's quite interesting that that's my human design as a projector.
That is interesting.
And this is the role that I've fallen into or that I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that makes sense. If I'm being if I put on my critique hat here, how much of this do you feel is like real, authentic, tangible stuff versus like woo-woo stick? Yeah.
So a lot of people can think like that, but because I've got the neuroscience and the psych background as well, I looked at everything with my design and without me really understanding much about it to start with before I kind of went and got accredited and stuff like that. And everything that was on my graph and on my chart really resonated with me. Everything to the T. And then I kind of figured out, wow, that's sometimes why I feel like this or why I feel like that. Oh, okay. And when I started to look a bit further into the channels and the gates and everything else, it made sense. There was a lot of things that started to make sense and fall into place. So unless you've done it and you understand it properly, there will always be people that will think, it's just a time, it's just a date. But I can absolutely hand on heart tell you that your human design, if you understand it, is going to help you have better relationships. It's going to help you have a better life and maybe even a different journey in
So you're
life.
saying basically don't knock it until you try it.
Try it, yeah.
It's free to
yeah,
I don't know.
You can pull charts from different places. My Body Graft, there's a Human International School, I think it's called. So there are a few places.
Okay.
But really you need someone, it's better if you get someone that knows how to read it so that you can read it properly, because you're only going to get this much from a chart, whereas when you go through and read it with someone, they're going to kind of pack it out and they're going to give you some coaching questions around, your particular, strategy and authority and all of that type of stuff, which is going to get you to think and to understand, well, is what I'm doing right now what I should be doing? Yeah. Should I be moving somewhere else? Should I be doing that thing that I've been thinking about for so long that I've never done?
Okay, amazing.
So, yeah.
I love that. I might have to look into it, and I recommend anyone else as well. Maybe reach out to Janice. She might give you some pointers on how to get things going.
Yeah.
Besides this, do you want to touch on any of your other entrepreneurial stuff? Because I know there's other things that you do, but is it worthwhile mentioning? What keeps you busy?
Yeah, so my kids keep me busy. My household keeps me busy. My work keeps me busy. My book writing is nearly finished, so it's finished. So hopefully that won't keep me as busy. I've done a few speaking, opportunities, and I've got a couple that I'll be doing towards the end of the year. So one in October. And I've hopefully got another one coming up in August, which will be really nice. I'm about to do a roadshow tour with my book as well.
Nice.
So I'm going to go to Melbourne, and so when I come, I might get you to help me pull some people together. Sydney, Brisbane, probably Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that. The only other business that I'm kind of working on at the moment is it's called Bliss Oasis. So www.blissoasis.com.au. So it's a beautiful skincare range, all natural. Think beautiful clay masks and skin products and all of that type of stuff.
Is that your business?
That's my business.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's still in its little baby infancy, but we're ready to go. We have products. So literally, it's just about turning on the shop and getting out there and going. So.
I'll make sure I leave the details of the website and stuff in the show notes. So that's perfect. Anything else?
No, I think that's about it.
That's it. Anything else that we haven't touched that you want to talk about?
No, I've got I kind of love the property space as well. So doing a little bit in that, dabbling a little bit in that space at the moment as well. So.
I briefly heard about that. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll see. It's always so it's always lots to do when you're dealing with builders and plans and councils and all that type of stuff, but we're getting there.
I once learned from a property investor by the name of Dr. Dolph DeRose, and he goes, just look at the Forbes 400 list, right?
Yeah.
These days, there's a lot of tech tycoons and whatnot in there, but majority of them haul their wealth in real estate. Property, yeah. It's just the way to go. And we're in a situation, we're in Australia, it's a little bit harder to get in, but it doesn't mean you can't. You just have to be creative and just push forward, partner up with people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so good on you for going down that journey as well.
Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap up, I suppose, before we land the plane?
No, I think we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on the book.
Yeah, no, thank you.
How many people in the world write a book, right?
I don't know.
I think it's only a small fraction.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to say, actually there is one thing that I forgot to tell you. So when you're just talking about the book, I do have the book, but I also have my new podcast. So I'll have to get you on there. It's called Legacy Leaders and with Janice Elsley. And it's available on all major outlets, Spotify, podcasts, you name it. And it pretty much talks about leadership, wellness, business success, self-care, confidence, that holistic approach. So I'll have to get you on there.
I love it. For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good on you. Congratulations on all the success. I know you're a go-getter. It's really inspiring for me, and I tell this to Johnny all the time, that we need entrepreneurs. We need people who are willing to go out there, make the change. Because those who are sitting in front of the TV as a couch potato watching Netflix or something, they're not going to change the world.
No,
it's the people who actually try. They may fail,
but you just get up again, right?
Just get up again. Exactly.
Just like skating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Opi.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye.